So with an experiment, if I'm like making you do things, then that's an experiment. An observational study means I'm just sitting back and I'm watching. I'm not making you go out of your comfort zone and do anything. So the key word here would just be impose a treatment. I'm making you do something. So I've got two examples. One of them is an experiment and one is a study. And you don't have this on your notes. We're just going to look at the screen. So two different ideas. The first one and the second one. So the top one says that they took a random sample and asked them about their bedtime habits. Then the data showed that people who drank a cup of tea before bedtime were more likely to go to sleep earlier than those who didn't drink tea. Would this be observational or would it be an experiment? Observational. How come?
They didn't make them take tea.
Yeah, observational. So basically they just asked a bunch of people, do you drink tea or not, and then compared the data. But I didn't make you drink tea before you went to bed. So the next study, they have like sleepy time tea. Another study took a group of adults and randomly divided them into two groups. One was told to drink tea every night. The other was told not to drink tea that week. So what would that be? That's an experiment because I'm making people do things. Making people do things. Okay, let's look at the next one. A study randomly assigned volunteers to one of two groups. One was directed to use social media, as they normally do, and the other was blocked from social media. The researchers looked at which group tended to be happier. How come?
Because they directed to use.
Yeah, they're making you get off of social media. Another study took a random sample of people and examined their social media habits. They were categorized into light, moderate, or heavy social media users. Then they looked at which groups tended to be happier. Observational. Good. So basically, if they're making people do stuff, that's an experiment. If they're just collecting data, but people stay in their natural habitat, then that's an observational study. So we're going to look at first, so the beginning of today, first half of the class, we're going to look at some experiments. We're going to read through them, and we're going to be able to dissect or pull out, like, what are the key parts of the experiment. So this is what I handed out to you. You have these vocabulary terms, and they're not actually on your notes. I just added them today, like your first set of notes. So you might want to highlight some of these terms. The first thing is the word experimental units. That's just like, who is the experiment about? Who is our target people? If in the paragraph it says we randomly had 50 people from PCA, then our subjects are the 50 people from PCA. When I say the word factor, that just means like what we're testing. So going back to the, the social media account or the social media example, the explanatory variable or what I'm testing is the amount of time on social media. That would be my factor. Level is within a factor. So if I have like the big, let me go back. If I have the big overarching factor, which is social media use, then I've got two levels within that. I told one group that they can use it, and then I told the other group that they have to block it. So level is like within your factor, I've got two levels. One that uses it and one that doesn't. Response variable is what are the researchers measuring at the end of the study. So what were they measuring at the very end? Like the happiness, yeah. Happiness, which how do you measure happiness? But I guess they tried to do that. So response is like what I'm measuring at the very end. What is my final outcome? There's also a few principles of experiments that make them good versus bad. So if you're ever reading, or like I said, listening to a commercial talking about this new medicine that came out, these are some things that you want to look for when you're reading studies. The first is replication. If they're only testing it out on one person, that's not good. How am I going to know if I just used Avery as an example for social media happiness, or if I just use Avery and Katie and I said you use it and you don't, and then I'm going to compare your happiness? There's like a million other things that could affect our happiness. If I'm just looking at two people, how is that going to give me any accuracy? So replication just means you want to have many subjects. And what is many? There's not a right or wrong. Like, we need 30 people for this to be accurate. There's no like right or wrong number per se, but I usually just try to say more than 25 is a good kind of rule of thumb, but I don't want to say like 25 is the exact number because every experiment is different. So finding 25 people could be hard, but just if they're doing it to more than one person, this experiment. The second thing is called blinding, and it's so the units don't know what treatment they're getting. And so obviously if you're doing this social media experiment, you're going to know whether, like, what group you're in, obviously. Like, I know I'm not doing social media because they told me I needed to block it. So blinding isn't necessary, but sometimes it's good to have that. And what I think about that's really important to have blinding is if I'm testing out some sort of supplement. So maybe, I don't know, you're dealing with depression or something, and I have this new supplement that I think helps with that. If I'm trying it out and I give it to you and you know you're a part of this experiment, then it could cause what we call a placebo effect, which means like I think I'm taking this pill and I think it's helping, so it must be because of this supplement. And when in reality it could just be the placebo effect, which means you think that it's helping. It's the same with like any weight loss supplement or like a diet plan or something like that. If you know that it's happening to you, like you're getting this new supplement or this new pill, then it could cause a placebo effect. Whereas if you have no idea whether you're getting the placebo or you're getting a new supplement, you're not going to get in your head that it's the pill that's making you better. So blinding just means that the units don't know what group they're in. They don't know what they're a part of. If you hear the word double blind, which doesn't happen very often, it would be like if I am the one that is administering the experiment, so I'm handing you this new weight loss supplement. I, as the researcher or the administrator, don't know what group you're in either.
It's like the Pygmalion effect.
What's that?
It's like you know, if you're like coaching like a team and you have this expectation that, you know, this one group is going to be a lot more promising than the other group, and you're going to invest more, and in turn the team members on the first team are going to do better than the team that you don't really care about.
Yeah, exactly. So if you've like heard, oh, this year we're going to be really good at football or something, or at volleyball, then you're going to invest more time and energy into it. Whereas if you just go into it blindly and you don't know, then you'll put in as much effort. Or like for me being the administrator of this supplement, I'm not going to sway you one way or the other or create any bias in that. The next one is randomization. So just the way that you assign subjects to treatments. I'm not just going to say this half of the room goes here and this half of the room goes there. That's not random at all. So even if you see the word volunteers are okay in an experiment. especially if you're doing something really intense, like I'm doing some sort of neurological experiment where you have to run tests and things like that. You can't just go pick up people off the road and say, hey, you're doing this. And sometimes they have to bribe you with money. Like you can go and do these neurological tests and get money out of it. So they have to get volunteers for those things. It's not ethically correct to just pick people off the road and say you have to do this. So you have to get volunteers for those things. And once you get those volunteers, if you randomly assign them after that, then that's okay. It's okay to have volunteers, because sometimes that's all you can get. You just need to make sure that you randomly put them in groups. And then the last two are control and blocking. Control just means that you're trying to control all of the outside effects as much as possible. So an example that I usually like to give is, I've heard that the temperature in a classroom affects how well you do on a quiz or a test or an assessment. So in this classroom, we're going to set it to 65 degrees, and then in Miss Leininger's room, we're going to set it to 75 degrees. And what they say is that if the room is colder, you tend to do better. So let's say I set up this whole experiment. I randomly assign half of you in there and half of you in here, and you take the same test. What are some other things that could affect my results?
Sleep.
Yeah, how much you studied, how much you sleep, what else? Yeah, how smart you are, your ability level. So those are all things that are called extraneous variables, things that could get in the way of what I'm actually trying to test, which is how well the assessment went or how well you did on the test. And so by controlling, I'm trying to keep everything the same across the board. So something that I can control is what test you take. Okay, you're taking the same test as you are in there as you are in here. You all got the same amount of instruction. I did the same thing for all of you when I taught this lesson. I obviously can't control how much you went outside and studied, but I can control like what I did in here in terms of how you were all taught. Whenever you can't control everything, obviously, you just hope that you have a little bit of every kind of studier in there. You have some people that studied a lot and some that didn't, just by random assignment. So if I randomly put some of you in there and some of you in here, my hope is that those extra things kind of got balanced out. And then the last thing is blocking. So units, this isn't all the time. You don't have to have blocking. This is just sometimes. It's like I'm going to put you in groups first, and then I'm going to randomly assign you to rooms. So let's say that amount of sleep is something that's really big into taking a test. Like I think that is going to just cause my data to be skewed or messed up. So I'm going to split you into groups first for the people that got 0 to 4 hours, and then 5 to 12. I don't think anybody got 5 to 12 hours, or 12 hours. So I'm going to block you first. Then I'm going to do a cold room and a hot room, cold room and a hot room, and then compare. So that's what I mean by blocking, is I'm going to put you in groups first and then do the experiment and then compare. Blocking doesn't always have to happen. So this is a lot of information, and I don't expect you to we're not going to be designing an experiment or anything like that, but we are going to have to be able to read experiments and try to pick out those things that we see. So we're going to do, this is the first one. We're going to do one together, and I know it's kind of hard to read on your paper, so I'm sorry, you're going to need to get your magnifying glasses out. But we're going to dissect one together and pick out everything that we can from the experiment. And then I'm going to give each group an individual experiment that you guys are going to look at together and then present to the class. So let's look at the first one. It says people with acrophobia, which is a fear of heights, sometimes enroll in therapy sessions to help them overcome this fear. Typically 7 or 8 therapy sessions are needed before improvement is noticed. a study was conducted to determine if D-cycloserine, how do you say that? Cycloserine, I guess, used in combination with fewer therapy sessions would help people. So each of 27 people who participated in this study received a pill before each of the 2 therapy sessions. 17 received the actual pill, and then 10 received a placebo. After 2 therapy sessions, none of the 27 people received additional pills or therapy. 3 months after, each of the 27 people were evaluated to see if they had improved. So the first thing that I want to pick out is, who are my experimental units? Who are my subjects? 27 people. So my experimental units are 27 people with acrophobia. You can say that. The second thing that I want to look at, what was the next word? Factor? Yeah. So what's my factor? What am I using to test? The pill. Yeah. So factor is the D-cycloserine pill. And then my levels within that. So I have 2 different groups. The first group is what? Yeah, getting the pill. And then the second group is what? Placebo. And so those are my levels. The last thing is my response variable. So what am I trying to figure out at the end of it? Yeah, so overcome fear. Improvement of their acrophobia. The next thing I want to look at is this a good experiment? So let's see if there are some things in there that we can tell if it's good or not. The first one was replication. So does it have replication? Yes. Where is that? Yeah, so 27 people. I'm just going to highlight that, and I'm going to put replication next to it. Is there randomization? Yes. Where does it say that? Yeah, randomly assigned. Doesn't really matter how, it just says that they were. So randomization. Is there blinding?
Yes.
Yeah, they don't know.
Yeah, do I know what pill I'm getting? No, it just says that they got a pill. So there is blinding. I don't really know what I'll highlight. Let's see.
It doesn't specifically say that they knew.
You just assume that they don't know. Yeah. So I guess received a pill. I'm going to say blinding because they don't know what pill. And is there any control or blocking that they talk about?
No more therapy sessions.
So what would that be?
Control.
Yeah, there's no, they're all getting the same amount of therapy sessions. So out to the side for control. You only need to list 1 or 2 that you see. In terms of control, like Caroline said, they're all, whether they took the pill or not, they are getting the same number of therapy sessions. Right. So if the people that got the actual pill had more therapy sessions than the ones that didn't, then that could be something that could affect it. And then blocking, there was no blocking. They were just 27 random people. A simple random sample means that every single individual has an equal chance of being selected. So every single jelly blubber has an equal chance. So on your random number generator, I want you to randomly select 10 numbers from 1 to 100. Record those at the top and then you'll flip it over on the back and record the links and find that average. Once you have that average, I want you to plot it over here. Since we could have possibly gotten all really big ones or all really small ones, it means that there's a large variance, which just means there's like a big variety. So, may not be completely representative. But it was really easy to do, and it is completely unbiased. There was no method, there was no, like here, was there some bias involved in the ones where we guessed? Yes, because we were looking at it and we were judging the jelly blubbers, saying, you're really fat, so I'm going to pick you, and you're really skinny, and I'm going to pick you, and you're not good enough, you're ugly, is probably what you were thinking, and you're really pretty, so I'm going to pick this one. So there was like a lot of bias involved here. There was absolutely none here. So the next one is called stratified. You can go ahead and write this down. Stratified is we are going to divide them into homogeneous groups. And all I mean by homogeneous is a characteristic that they have in common. So how do you think we could divide these jelly blubbers?
Linked.
Yeah, they're linked. So I could put them into groups. So I'm going to pass out the stratified jelly blubbers.
Thank you.
Is this racist?
Yes, sizes.
I think it's racist.
And so now,
Oh my gosh, somebody's
you see how we have two
This is really
groups,
sad.
or we have 5 groups. So we've got, let's call them the extra small, the small, the medium, the large, and the extra
So it
large
says
jelly
Miranda
blubbers.
Reese on it.
Yeah, she wrote on it. She wasn't supposed to. So
Did you read that, Miranda?
what we'll do for stratified is now, if we want 10 jelly blubbers total, how many should we pick from each group? 2. So I want to get 2 from each group. So in your random number generator, you're going to get 2 numbers that are between 1 and 19. And you'll record those. Then you'll find 2 more numbers that are between 1 and 17. 1 and 19, 1 and 23, 1 and 22. And you're doing 2 per group. So basically you're taking some from all of the groups. That is a stratified. Some from all. Yeah, so this one is more consistent. It's more accurate. It has less variability, meaning like it doesn't have as big of a range. So
Accurate to what?
to the actual mean, the actual average.
Oh.
Because there is a specific number that is the true population average.
Right. But
And
we
that's
don't
what we're
know
trying to guess. No, we don't know it yet. But
27.
it's just more precise, might be a better word. It's more precise. It kind of zeroes in on a number versus if you're looking at the SRS, you can take a guess as to what you think it is, but it may not be as accurate of it. But it is difficult. You have to divide them in stratum first. So like we had to put them into groups, so that takes time. So we don't, if it's not a natural grouping, then sometimes we don't actually want to put them into a group because it takes a long time.
Also, could you clarify again what the systematic sample was?
That's what we're doing next.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the next one is systematic. And systematic is just every 5th person, every 10th person, every 7th person. Like you're just, and Caroline did this in the very beginning. So she chose, like, what did you do? 15, 25, 30, 35. So you skipped every 10. And so that is a systematic. It's the same thing, but you have to randomly choose that first number. So I need you in your random number generator to choose one number between 1 and 10. One number between 1 and 10. And whatever number you are, let's say I got 7, then I'm going to choose jelly blubber number 7, number 17, 27, 37, 47, 57, 67, all the way to 97. And that's going to give me 10 jelly blubbers.
So what's like the definition for systematic?
Oh, I thought did it not show up? So just a systematic approach, and you randomly select where to begin in. So if you put like every K, doesn't really matter what number it is, every blank. Anytime you are reading a scenario and it says every something, every fifth, every seventh, every 10th, that's how you know it's going to be systematic. So this one, you'll just be looking at the original jelly blubber sheet, like the very first one that had all 100 of them. So write down the 10 jelly blubbers that you are picking from, then flip on the back and record your lengths, and then find an average and come plot it on the dot plot. What are some things that you see about systematic that are not necessarily good things?
Spread out.
Yeah, it's pretty spread out. Yeah, it's just trends. So like we know if you get this one number, you're going to get this outcome. So there isn't a whole lot of like variation between the two. But so right now stratified is proving to be the best, but all three of these are still good ways to sample. They're not bad because they do have randomization in them. They just aren't producing the best results. So the last one is cluster. So I want you to go to the back of your stratified jelly blubber page, and they are what? Yeah. So these are based upon location. So basically we just drew a little dashed line and we grouped them into 5 jelly blubbers in each location. An example of a cluster like at this school would be classes, so 7th period classes. And if I wanted to take a sample of 50 people at this school, I could choose 3 7th period classes randomly. And then I'm going to sample everyone in those classes. Versus, and it's different than a stratified, because if I wanted to choose 50 people at PCA using stratified, I could choose 1 person from every classroom. So that is sum from all. A cluster, we say, is all from sum. So I want you to write this in your definitions. Stratified is sum from all. Cluster is all from sum. So I'm only choosing 3 classrooms total, and then I'm going to survey every single person in that classroom. Stratified would be I'm going to choose 50 classrooms and choose 1 person from every single classroom. So for the cluster jelly blubbers, if there are 5 jelly blubbers per cluster, how many clusters do I need to pick? 2. And then I'm going to sample every jelly blubber in that cluster. So how many clusters are there? 20. So I need to choose 2 random numbers between 1 and 20. And let's say I got 6 and 12. I'm going to write down those numbers of jelly blubbers in 6 and 12. I'm going to record their lengths and then come put it up here on the dot plot.
There's more?
The last 2 types. The next one is convenience sampling. This is not a good type of sampling.
Bad. It's bad.
It is bad.
It's bad.
It's like you're standing outside of the mall and you ask the first 100 people that pass by. It's not really random, it's just convenient. But sometimes people do it. Yes.
Don't they do that for like Family Feud? Like they just like walk out and just ask 100 people.
I don't know. I don't know how they get the Family Feud people. That would be good to
Can I
look
look it
up
up?
though. Not right now.
Oh,
But
I'm gonna
yes.
say 100. Get on.
Because it's like we asked 100 people and they said.
Or like 100 married women. They're like,
True.
we ask 100 married women.
Yeah. I've
Yeah,
never
how do
been
you find
asked.
those 100 married?
I've never been asked, but
We're
that's a
just gonna
good
say,
thing.
Are you married?
Are you married? Are you a female? Are you a female? Are you married? Yes. What's your answer?
So just whatever is easiest. We wouldn't consider that to be a good one. And then the last type is called multi-stage sampling. It's just like, it's like stratified, but we just keep getting smaller and smaller groups. So, okay, I'm going to separate you guys by gender. Then I'm going to separate you guys again by your GPA. And then I'm going to sample one from each one of those. So
That was
it's like,
bad.
no, that one's good. The only one that is bad is convenience. The only one that is bad is convenience. So this one is okay. So it's like you just keep breaking down into groups. Yes. That was the one that was like every 10th person, every 5th person, like every K person.
And the cluster sample.
It's when you're taking all from some of the groups. And I will have this video and PowerPoint posted if you want to check it. Okay, so let's look at a few examples. I just want you to read them. And I want you to tell me what kind of sample they are.
That would be the multi-stage.
What are they doing?
Multi-stage.
They have
No.
one group and they go into a smaller group.
So that is called stratified. If they're just doing it one time, that's stratified. If they did it again, that would be multi-stage.
Wait, but it says that they have.
So they divided all colleges into similar types. All colleges into similar types, stratified. So breaking down into groups,
So if
stratified.
you divide into 4 groups and then you divide into
8 groups.
so like
So then if it were like, then I took my small, public, and private, and then I broke those down into men and women, yeah, with any.
Like GPA.
Multi-stage hardly ever happens. Like I would not count on that being an answer. Okay, what about this one?
Simple random sample.
Cluster.
SRS.
SRS or cluster?
Cluster.
Cluster.
Yes.
Because she selects blocks in her district, a few blocks, and then surveys all the people in those blocks.
Okay.
All from some.
Stratified.
No.
Systematic.
Systematic.
Systematic. Yeah.
Systematic. Every 10th. Every 10th.
Did you say whether there was a best way of sampling?
Stratified can be seen as the most precise, but all of the random ones are okay. So the only one that is bad is convenience. Every other one is good.